Are you a tall girl? Are you unable to fit your beautiful Amazon body into the things that you want to wear? Well, me too. But I'm gonna walk you through some of the things I've picked up through the years as a tall girl who sews and show you how to edit your clothes and plan your clothes so that they fit you right. If the bottom of your shirt and the top of your pants never seem to meet, you might consider wearing a tank top underneath, but sometimes tank tops aren't long enough either, and then you just run into the same problem again, but with 2 layers of clothing. So personally, I just learned how to accept myself. But if that's not an option for you, or it's a chilly winter day, bodysuits and leotards are a fantastic alternative. When it comes to leotards, store-bought ones, even the ones that you'll buy from professional dance companies in the extra long side, are never really long enough. The straps will still dig into your shoulders and they'll ride up the butt a little bit because they're still stretching to your length. And the thing is, a garment shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to wrestle with your clothes to make them fit your body. Because that constant pulling down on your shoulders can increase the likelihood that you get a tension migraine. Also, it just kind of hurts a little. And that constant tugging upward in between your legs can make it more likely that you develop a urinary tract infection. And those aren't fun. Not to mention, chafing just isn't a fun thing. So instead, I'm gonna walk you through an easy way to take your measurements and draft your own.
Take a shirt and a pair of underwear that fit you very well, and then find some jersey or stretch fabric that you like and would like a bodysuit made out of. You're going to take your shirt and you're going to take your underwear and you're going to fold them in half, and then you're going to trace all of the seam lines on the front side of the garment. And then you're going to do the same again for the back side. Make sure that your direction of greatest stretch, or dogs, is going side to side and not. Fold your fabric in half and take your measurement from your collarbone to the middle of your crotch, and line your collar of your shirt and your crotch seam on your underwear up on the top and bottom of this line respectively. Trace your garment as stated before, making sure that you're getting the seam lines and not the footprint of the garment. I'll link a much more in-depth tutorial to this because this is really just a brief overview. Then you're going to cut your piece of fabric out, and after some sewing, you will have a nice little bodysuit.
And you can either carbon copy your sleeves the same way that you did with your t-shirt. This is called cloning a garment if you want to look up more on it. Or you can just draft a sleeve. Link up there. Isn't the internet grand? Also, there's nothing wrong with just having a tank top bodysuit, so you can be lazy too. I give you full permission. Now, once you've done all of this, this will give you a very basic bodysuit. And there's all sorts of ways to spruce up a bodysuit pattern or make it better. And if you add a really good fitting shelf bra, you can even use it as a swimsuit pattern. Lord knows, no one over 5'3" can fit in a one-piece swimsuit. At least not off the rack. And leotard outfits can be super cute. Cue the montage. But what about if you get a super cute hand-me-down, or you find something at the thrift store that you fall in love with and it's like 2 inches too short to be worn? Don't worry, I have tricks for that. One of the first and easiest ways to do this is to take your hem, unpick it, and add a ribbon or a hem tape to give just a little bit more length at the bottom. I did that with this dress here. As you can see, the original hem was way too short, so I unpicked that and I finished my raw edge with just a little bit of ribbon. And now it's perfect! It's still a bit short, but I'm a fan. This same method can be done to the bottoms of jeans or pants and blouses if there's a hem. Most hems are going to be only about that long in my experience, but sometimes you get really wide ones, and adding this much length to a garment can really help the overall look in the long run. Basically, if there's a hem, there's a way. Another more involved option is to add a ruffle at the bottom. I'm gonna do that with this cottagecore Y2K dress that my sister-in-law gave me.
Find a fabric of a similar type and a complementary color to your original garment. In this case, I'm going to use this lovely brown color. I got a yard of fabric and I folded it into thirds and I pressed a really good crease into it. Then I opened up my fabric and I cut along this crease to get 3 lengths of fabric that were basically the same size and shape. And then I lined up my fabric pieces to make one continuous ribbon. I tried gathering along the top edge, but because I had doubled my fabric over to avoid doing a hem, it was way too thick, so I wound up doing knife pleats instead. Then I stitched over top of the original hem and attached my ruffle to my dress. I also unpicked the gathering stitches that were showing, but I did that off camera. Actually, I did a lot off camera. Much better. Now it actually covers my body.
A waist panel can also be added the way that I did with this leotard toil.
But let's walk through how I did this real quick. Put on your dress that is too short for you to wear it, and measure from the edge of the hem to where you would like the dress to actually rest on you once you're done. You'll also want to measure around the waistline. If there's a seam connecting your bust to your skirt, unpick this. If there's not a seam connecting your bust to your skirt, then you're going to have to mark very, very evenly all along the waistline of your dress and cut along this line. It's scary, I know. In a similar fabric type and a coordinating fabric color, cut out a rectangle of fabric. The length of your rectangle will be the circumference of your waist plus seam allowances, and the width of your rectangle will be the distance that you would like to add to your hem. And then you're going to fold it in half lengthwise and sew a seam along the shorter ends of the rectangle. And then you're going to attach this piece of fabric to the bottom of the bodice and the top of the skirt.
When you're sewing clothes, you need to keep your height in mind. Most patterns will tell you the height that they drafted their patterns for. I'm actually going to link in the description box below a really helpful blog post from a couple years back where they listed all of the pattern houses and what body type they draft for. It's really fascinating. It's a really good read. Also, if the standard length isn't given, just measure your own body and compare that to the pattern pieces that you see and make sure that you're going to have enough length to cover you. Bear in mind though that curves such as your bust or your belly or other things require a little bit more fabric to cover because they're a 3D form. So it's normal to have like 2 to 3 inches more in length so that it lays in the right spot once it's squeezed over your body. With more advanced patterns like corsets and bodices, they'll often mark where the bust line, the waistline, the high hip, and the hip are. And I find these body landmarks to be really helpful because then you can measure the distance between them on your own body and compare to make sure that it's all going to line up correctly. It's important to note that the point of your bust might not always be your nip. This is totally unrelated, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. If you have breastfed, if you've had developed breasts for more than like a decade, or you just have above a D cup, you know what? If you have more than a C cup, gravity is going to do some real work on you. And that's normal. Your nip is designed to point downward. Like, imagine cradling a baby in your arm. Where is its face gonna be? Also, mammary glands aren't always rooted in the same place in relation to the nip, so there's a lot of variability there. Listening to bra makers talk about cup patterns is very fun because there is a ton of variance that can happen, and that is normal. I have never seen 2 tatas that were alike, even on the same body. So yeah, segue over. Lord knows that this is not a video for kids anymore.
I have marked my bust, under bust, waist, and hips with tape so that you can visualize where those go on a normal body. Please note that my tape is not completely even because I had to do this by myself. So now I'm just going to take my measuring tape and I'm going to measure in the center of each tape line and get the distance in between the two. I'm going to do this along every edge of my body. So along the front section, along the side where the apex of my bust is, and along the true side, as well as the back. And then I'm going to compare these numbers and take the average. This average is what I'm going to assume I need in between these marks on an actual pattern. If you have a very large bust, you're going to want to ignore the distance in your apex and totally disregard that. You could add some more length to your front panels and put a dart in to accommodate the girth of your bosom, but that is a topic for another day. This method is called a full bust adjustment, and it's a very important skill to learn. When you cut out your patterns, leave a little bit of a margin around the edge because you're going to clean up lines later, and that will make it easier. Once they're all cut out and taped together, grab some of the margins of the paper and cut out a length of paper that is exactly the length that you're wanting to add to your pattern. This will add the same amount of length to each pattern piece, which is important for making sure that all of your lines match up. If your pattern has a lengthen or shorten here line, be sure to cut along that line. If your pattern doesn't have a lengthen or shorten here line, draw a straight horizontal line in between two body mark lines, such as the waist and high hip line. Cut along that line and get ready to insert the piece of paper in between. It helps if you use a ruler to line up your top and bottom pattern piece. If there's a grain line, you can line your ruler up with that so that nothing gets off kilter. Then just tape it in place. I find that it helps to tape one end at a time. Now, once your pattern piece is taped in place, you're going to connect your pattern lines. Make sure that there aren't any awkward jumps or curves. Using a ruler or a French curve can be really helpful for this. Congratulations, your pattern is now long enough for your body.
You might consider taking your circumferences at the same time, but that's a topic for another video. And someone else has already done it better than I will. And now I chose to use a corset pattern, even though they're much more complex and scary and in a lot more pieces than most patterns you'll ever touch. Don't be scared off by this. This same method can be used for a t-shirt pattern or a dress pattern that fits you like a sack. Just make sure that all of your darts are still in the same place and you're fine. And in each pattern, there might be a different way that you want to add length. For example, for the supermarket pants, I didn't add length in the middle of the leg, I just added like 2 inches to the bottom of the hem, and it was fine. Perfect cafe length. It's kind of ironic that I chose to sew them at cafe length since all pants kind of fit me at cafe length, but you get used to what you're used to. And now you know everything that a tall girl who sews needs to know. Go forth and gallop proudly. I fully realized that this was a metric ton of information that I just chucked at you, but I really wanted to make a video that was a one-stop shop, talking you through all the methods you could possibly use to lengthen a garment. So, here you go. Happy birthday. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and watching all the way to the end here. It honestly means a ton to me whenever I see that people have watched all the way through, because, you know, then I know I actually maybe provided useful information to you, and that's the whole reason why I'm doing this. If you want to see more from me, whatever shenanigans I get up to as a retired costumer, or more alternative fashion patterns, feel free to hit the subscribe button and join around. I'd love to see you in the next one. Until then, bye friends!